Hello everybody, welcome to part 2 of the Victorian interior tutorial. Today we're going to be going over the base color and the normal. I know that's a little different. This specific material has its own normal section because we are going to be using this wood material that we made in part 0. Unless you have your own base wood material that you want to use, you can go back and look at the prereq and then follow along. So this is where we left off last time. We finished the height. It was a very long video, but now everything else should be a lot shorter. So I just want to go over real quick just how the base color and the normal is set up in this material. So if we go all the way to the left here, this node called base underscore wood is just that's fine actually, just do this. Whatever, it's down here. It's the base wood that we made in part 0, the prereq. So you can drag this into your graph. Oh goodness, 1 second. Okay, we're good. So yeah, so I just dragged it out there. And then, I think we got rid of all the outputs. Or I think these are the only ones that are plugged in the base wood. So we'll be using the base color, the normal, and the roughness because those are the 3 things that we still have to do. So we're basically using another graph within this graph. So instead of having to build our base wood in here, which you could do, but it would start to become slow and lag your computer, then you can just bring in this node and you can see it's doing all the calculating in there. It's a lot cleaner to look at. So we're going to be using that, and then we're going to be making some slight modifications to it. And then basically we're just going to be borrowing the outputs from that wood that we made. So you can see the normal and you can see the roughness. And then basically what we're going to do is we're going to be using all those masks that we spent all that time in part 1 making. And we're actually going to assign a specific, or I guess not really specific, a rotation, because our wood grain is either going to go up in horizontal or vertically. And we are going to be using those masks and rotating the wood output based on what that mask requires. So for example, these boards are going left to right. So obviously I want my wood grain to go left to right. And I think by default our base wood is running left to right. So technically we don't have to rotate this guy. But for example, if we were doing a mask like this guy, these guys here, then obviously I need to rotate the base color texture, you can see here, by 90 degrees. Now the reason why I'm going over this is because a lot of what we're going to do today with the normal, actually with the next tutorial as well, it's all going to be that. It's either going to be rotated 90 degrees or it's going to be at 0 degrees because it's already left to right. And basically I use a safe transform because I noticed there was some weird stuff happening when you do a 2D transform and you move things around. It kind of seems like it blurs, I think, or something like that. I don't know, but it's a better safe transform is a better node for this specific reason because if you guys look, I've labeled all of the blend modes. So this is 0, 0, and C stands for color. So we got color 00 and 01, 02, 03, similar to what we did in the height to kind of keep ourselves organized so you know what exactly you're looking at. And the reason this helps is because if I use the same safe transform on all of these guys, because I'm using a safe transform for all of these, then the wood is going to rotate. We're gonna get the same seed basically. So for example, this one is called C01, color 01. So then I have my same transform here, seed set to 1. So that I know that, random seed 1 belongs to CO1. And it's always going to go before the blend mode. So this one's CO2. So then this guy is going to be seed number 2. Otherwise, I'm trying to offset or, just move and randomize my wood. And they're all going to be in the same location if they all use the same seed. And if we were doing a 2D transform, and let's say you just offset this randomly, your seed doesn't change the result because the result is being set by the offset that you're setting manually. So instead of you guys having to, pause the video and look at the values every time, you already know ahead of time that all you have to do is match the seed to the blend mode, and then just make sure that the wood is either 0 degrees or 90 degrees depending on what you need, and that's just based on the mask. So I think this is a way safer workflow, and it's better for you guys as well, so it's like a win-win-win-win-win-win-win all around. Okay, so let me just go through this and make sure if there's nothing else I need to explain, otherwise we'll get started. I think I noticed one last thing is that we will also be doing basically the same thing with the normal, and that's why I'm pairing these two together, because they're using color data, hence the orange connections. So we're going to run through color first, and then we can copy paste these safe transforms, and we can save a lot of time. But the normal does get set up a little differently because it's normals and we have to combine the normals, where we don't have to do that here. But again, once you do it once, everything else is just a repeat. Alrighty, so I'm gonna connect this, and then I'm gonna disable all the blends, and then we'll get started. So be right back. Okay. So I have disabled everything, and there is still this color, but that's just from this guy here. But for now, we have to make these small changes to the wood, because when we made this wood, it was our base wood, but when I made it, it wasn't meant to be used on such a large, I guess what's called like textile density. So that wood might look good, up close, but if it runs across all of this, the tiling will be too small, and we will need to enlarge it. So that's what we do first. So we'll take our base wood, pull from the base color output into a safe transform color. Now this one, don't worry about the seed. This one doesn't matter because we're just increasing the tiling. So we're going from this to kind of match what you would see on something like this window. So we're going to increase the tiling by 2. So just change tiling to 2, and that's pretty much it. And then we're going to make some changes here to kind of break it up, because otherwise it's just going to be like tiling doubled. So here I kind of just break it up by adding some subtle dark spots. So we're going to start with the directional noise 1 into a histogram scan. And then down here, we're going to do a transform 2D. We're going to increase the tiling, and then we're just going to rotate it. Then that goes into a subtract blend, and we're going to have our noise purlin 16 scale seed 1 into an auto levels. Actually, I don't think I need this auto levels because I think this should already be auto leveled, but whatever. Into a directional blur, into a scan, and then we're going to take this 2D transform from before, and we're going to subtract it by the histogram scan down here. Then we're going to pull from this histogram scan, and I think we just turn it upside down and offset it a little bit here. And then we're going to take this histogram scan directly after the directional noise and max lighten with this guy. And then we get this, which is like a more broken up rather than just, because here we increase the tiling and you can see the repetitiveness. So then I wanted to have smaller details and larger details and then just max lighten them together to kind of create a bigger one. But it's also tiling, but we broke up the tiling. Then we subtract this guy from it and we get this. Again, more breakup. I don't want the tileability to be noticeable. And then we subtract this noise moisture scale of 1, seed 1, and then we subtract again just to kind of add some variation, because right now this is looking pretty flat in terms of white. So then I wanted to break it up, and that's just subtract that moisture noise. And then we feed that into the opacity, and then we take from the safe transform, we split up top, HSL, we just do a little darkening here. And then, because of our mask, we get these darker spots kind of spread randomly across. All right, so let's turn on the first blend here. And the first thing I do is I set the color for the design, the pattern on the wallpaper. So to do that, we're going to have these two colors. You can color pick. You can pause the video and color pick off of right here or right here. So I'll click on these. And then we have a copy. And then for the opacity, we use our mask wallpaper trim and our mask black, because we need a switch here for wallpaper, because do we want wallpaper or not? Because we did add a switch here. So you can turn it off and on if you don't want the pattern. So mask black will go in false, and if it's true, obviously we're going to use this one. All right, and then that's going to go into the opacity. And then this top one determines the color of the pattern. And then obviously the bottom one, aka the background, defines the color of the wallpaper itself. Okay, so now off to our first one here. So we're going to start with the lower wooden area here, the lower paneling. And as you notice, right now we're using this safe transform here. And my offset mode right here, forgot to mention this earlier, is set to random. That way, based on the seed, it's choosing a random offset. So we don't have to input values, which is going to be really nice for you guys and myself, because there'll be less clicking for me. Now, we do have a color mask here that we created in the last part. And so I use a vector warp color with an intensity of 5 to offset this wood based on these colors. So you can see that it's offsetting. So if we turn this down, you can see that it's not turned on, and as I slide it up, it's going to start moving, shifting, offsetting the wood based on these masks. So that's where the seams are. Alrighty. So then that is going to get plugged into the foreground. And then we need to create a new mask here. So we're going to take our mask wall, window, door, and our mask paneling, and we're going to subtract, because we need this shape here. So that's this right here. And even though this is also wooden here, I don't want it, because I'm going to paint that on top. Like I said, we're going to be taking masks and masks and masks, and we're just going to keep layering them on top of each other. So that's why the wood right now is running across these guys. That'll be fixed later on, because we have a mask for just these guys that we made in the last tutorial. So don't worry, it's going to get better looking as we go. So then that goes into the opacity, and we're just going to keep using copy blends for all of these, because right now we're just assigning a specific rotation and offset to a specific masks. So this one's CO1. Let's go to the next one. So you can see here the change because right now all the wood is running the same way. So the wood here is running over to here, which I don't want. So now this wood here is offset from this wood. Otherwise, it's going to seem like it's all been made of one piece of wood, and that's not normally how this is made. So I did want to have those seams, those cuts, to kind of add some more detail. All right. So like I said, since this one is CO2, then that means that this safe transform, again, will be, all the safe transforms are set to random. And since this one's O2, then the seed here is going to be 2. And then for the mask, we need the mask, the wall window door, our main guy here. And then we need our mask crown paneling. And then we are going to be subtracting. Yeah, because this guy runs across and we got to subtract the window shape. So we subtract this guy, we get this, and then that determines that. All right. So next, what is this mask? Okay, so then we go to the top. So before this, we had no top. So now we're taking our mask crown ceiling. Okay, here is something, a little extra step that I did here. And let me show you what it looks like if I disable this. So technically, so what we're doing here is we're painting this top, the crown ceiling, or the ceiling crown. And you can tell here that it's pixel perfect where that start and end is, right? Like this is 1 pixel, this is 1 pixel, but it's those pixels are connected. So if you look at this from an angle, it's going to show this fade. And if you look at this, like straight on, it's fine. But no one is ever going to be looking at this straight on, right? Especially because this is like at the ceiling. So if you're like a human height, you're going to be looking at it this way. And unless you have, I don't know, orthographic eyes, then you're going to be seeing things at an angle. So that means you will see this. So what I do here with the distance node is I extend this mask by 1 pixel to cover this fade. So if we turn this on, you can see that I increase it. But I want it to be completely white, not a gradient. So then I take a histogram scan and I make it completely white. And now, so we went from this to this. Now I don't want to do this to the height, otherwise we're going to extend the problem and it's going to fade again, but further away. Where was I? Right here. So in order to prevent that fading, I used the distance node. And I think I changed the distance mode here as well. So pay attention to that. All right. So that's CO3. So now let's go to CO4. What is changing here? Let's look at the mask. Okay, so now we're doing the middle part. Again, I don't want my wood to run completely across. I want to cut it here because this is like a new piece of wood. So I don't want my wood to go from here to here. So if we turn that off, you'll see that if we look at it top down, you don't even know where the seam is. And if I turn it on, you can see it. So again, we're just offsetting. Don't think I mentioned it, but basically we're pulling from this blend here where we made those spots, and we'll just have like a highway going up here, and we're just splitting down to the safe transforms. You guys probably picked up on that because I know my viewers are smart. Anyways, so now we're on the C4, and again, you can just copy paste the previous one that you made. Just pay attention whether you'll need to rotate it or not. And you'll notice because it'll look weird if you don't. So just take from there and then just make sure the random seed is set to 4. I'm going to stop mentioning it because I assume you guys got it by now and I don't want to waste your guys' time. So if just match this number with that seed. So 4. And then we're going to be using our crown ceiling accent mask here to make this change. Now we run into our first multi-switch color for the color portion here. So this guy, CO4, is only relevant to the window variant. So anything happening before goes under and goes into the what's the first one? Wall and door. Then we go on to CO5. Again, change the seed to 5. And then for the mask here, we need our wall, window, door. And we're going to subtract our crown floor 01. I think we're doing the same thing with the top here. So subtract those two. And even though it's not really being used here, if we change our variant to door, this will change. So this is something that only happens, the changes based on what you change it to. So if we do door, door doesn't have this, this board right here running across, because the door, obviously you have to walk unless you want to lift your foot up every time you go through this door. So remember, the door mask goes all the way down. So it's now subtracted in this area. But if we go back to, if we go to wall, we need it. So it's there. And it'll be there for window as well. It's only for door that it's gone. That's why you might be like, oh, what's the point of this mask? Nothing's changing. Okay. So then that goes into C5. And then there's our difference. Now, next we go to C6. I don't know what the difference is here, so let's look at our mask. Okay, so yeah, so I broke up the wooden boards from this like top to the bottom here. So take the window door, the WWD into foreground. We got a clown floor. Subtract. Again, this will only happen for door. And then this should be 6. This one should be 7 because it's 7 next. Now, I think this is our first rotate. So just pay attention to which way the wood grain is going. So this one needs to be rotated 90 degrees. Or negative 90. Or 270. Because now we're working with these guys. So you can see here. Now, we're finally starting to get some more directional wood grain here. So for this one, we're just going to be using the back paneling mask for our opacity. And now let's go to 08. Again, copy paste that 90 degree rotated one, change the seed to 8. And we're going to be using mask paneling _S for this mask. So that's going to be the inner guys. Because right now, we are rotating all of this to run up and down. But obviously, I want to break it up. Right, so we go from left to right to up and down, but now like it's doing all of this. So then I want to break it up, break up the run. Then we have CO9. Now we're back to 0 here, and we're doing C9. And then which one is this? Okay, so now we're painting this guy here. So we're going to take our WWD and subtract this guy here, which is paneling shape 002 for whatever reason I named it that. And then we have a 2D offset where we move it down negative 0.324. And then we have another multicolor switch here. So we need our input 1 and input 3 are going to be this guy. And then for window, because this is excluding window, will be whatever came before. Then we got C10. We're taking our paneling crown X02 and our paneling crown X01, and we're adding them together. And then we're feeding into a multi-switch. So that's going to go into input 1. And then just paneling crown X01 is going to go into input 2 and 3. Because the door is going to be here. And so we don't need it for the door and for window. Then we subtract the WWD again. And then feed that into the opacity for C10. And then we're doing C10 here. So you can see we're doing these guys up here now. So now we have these guys going left to right and these guys going up and down. Then we have C11. We need mass paneling crown Y02 and Y01. And again, we're just adding these guys. Because right now the wood is running up and down for these guys. And I want to break it up for these guys here. So add them together. Same process as before. Multi-switch. And then here we subtract WD from the result into the opacity. So now we have these guys. C12 is for paneling top. So for this guy up here. So we're slowly going step by step, painting everything. C11, paneling top mask into opacity. Boom. Then we go to 13 here. Because now we're doing these side guys, and these guys go up and down. So take your safe transform, C13, paneling top Y into the opacity for that guy. Then 14, what's going on here? Okay, this guy, so this is called the window small frames Y mask into opacity. 14th seed. Boom, pretty easy. We're gonna start picking up the pace here. It's pretty repetitive. Then we have C15. For C15, you know, we're doing C15 obviously. And then we have window divider 01 and WWD. And we're multiplying these guys. And then that's going to go into opacity. Now, it's okay that this is overlapping here because we're going to put this guy on top and it's going to, you know, overcome that. So now we have C16. And this guy is this guy here. So take our WWD. And we're going to subtract the window divider 02 from that. So again, I don't want this to be one piece of wood. I want it to be two. So that's what this mask is for. So now this middle guy is different. Now, ideally, if I really wanted to spend 1,000 years here, I would make this one mask, this one another, and the bottom one another one. But right now, the top and the bottom are sharing, but it's not as noticeable because we have this middle one running through. And I don't think anyone's really going to notice. Which ultimately is what it's all about in game dev or texturing. It's all about the illusion. So then we have our multicolor switch here. And we want to pull from before C12. So between C11 and 12, we're going to pull. And that's going to go into input 1 and 3 of the multi-switch. And then C16 will fit into input 2. Then we got C17. What's going on here? Okay, so these guys. So we're starting to paint the actual window frame. So again, C17, and then we take our window outer frame X into the opacity. Then we go to C18. Then we take window outer frame Y. Then we have the next set here, which is going to be window small frames Y and window inner frame X. These should have similar names, but it's okay. And then we're going to be subtracting to cut out this area here. And yeah, we subtract, that goes into the opacity. Then we take C20, so you can see here now that we're overlapping. No, I guess not, because these masks are pixel perfect. So just keep checking on the direction, the rotation of the save transforms. Take window divider 01 and window inner frame Y. Subtract them and then feed that into the C20 opacity. Then we do these guys here. Take the window small frames X mask, and that'll paint those guys. Then we have crown middle X, which is, I think it's this inner guy here. And then we need to do these little guys here. Make sure they're running up and down and not side to side. So we got crown middle Y. Change the rotation on the save transform. Then we got C24. Also 90-degree turn. Then we take Windows sides here, because now we're getting these guys. And then we need our multi-switch again. And this time we're pulling between 21 and 22. And that's going to go into input 1 and input 3. C24 is going to feed into input 2 because it's window related things. Now what's this? Okay, so now we're painting that guy. We're going to take our height trim top. And then we're going to scan it because this is a grayscale value. So technically it's not a mask because it's a grayscale, but then we're going to histogram it to make sure that it is all the way white or 1. Feed that into the opacity. So this save transform, you should know where it is without me having to click it, but I'll click it just to make sure we're all on the same page. 25, offset that to random. Then we do the inner bar, I think, yeah. Again, 2 pieces of wood, not the same piece. So then we take our height trim top accent. Again, histogram, scan it. And then that'll be this top bar here so that the wood grains are not running together. And then finally, we have the actual window color here. So you can choose whatever you want. That's what I used. And then we take our mask glass, which is the glass panes layer. And then that gives us that. And then we did a multi-switch. Since this color thing is only for window, then C27 runs into input 2. And then everything between, or actually, yeah, between 24 and 25, and after the multi-switch, it's going to feed into input 1 and 3. Because this is all like window exclusive things. Okay. So then we take a little break here. And now we go on to C28. What is this? What mask is this? Okay, so I think this is going to be, if I follow this, this is going to be door specific. So let's switch our variant to door so that we can see the changes. Okay, so if we go to door, this is what our door looks like after everything we did. Obviously, the wood grains aren't running in the right direction, and it's all kind of just running through, which you can see here. Actually, no, this is what it would look like after the window stuff that we did. And then after C28, we get this, where we just apply a full coat on top of the door mask, which is this guy. So again, this same distance histogram scan thing that I set up here, again, is just to get rid of this issue here, because in my renders, there are, from where the shot is from, this was noticeable, which is kind of annoying. So just for better presentation, I did this again. So we take our WWD, we distance it by 0.3, make sure you change your distance mode. Then we histogram scan it into the opacity, and then this should be 28, perfect. Offset random, feed that in there. And then we just apply a new coat onto the entire door mask. And then we're gonna break it up based on these parts again. So then we got C29. What's C29? Let's look at the mask. Okay. So if we look here, you can see the difference here, because I wanted to have a seam running this way or right here, but I think that'll get fixed as we go on, because then we apply the mask going this way Yeah, because right now this wood should cut there, but that comes later. So we're going to take our door planks Y for the opacity for 29, and then we're going to go to 30, and we're going to be applying our door planks X. Yeah, so here it's where it's fixed. So now we have this guy, and we have a nice seam to, again, add more detail to the material. Alrighty. So now we go to C31, and that's these guys here. You can see the change there, and we're going to be taking our door details X. That tells you what rotation, you know, this should be, and this should be 31 seed. Yep. And then we take 32, and that's these guys here. Again, the breakup is very important. Otherwise, everything's just going to be running the same, and it's going to look odd. Make sure you rotate your safe transform, and that would be door details Y. Now we need door frame X. So that's the top part running left to right of the door frame, because it's still running up and down. Boom, new coat of wood there. And then for C34, we take the sides, so door frame Y. Now you can do kind of the same thing here. Actually, no, you can't prevent this because it's stretching. That's why sometimes it is recommended to have in your curve node, at the end of the curve, give it a bit of a drop off so that you have more defining space. That way you have like a couple more pixels to work with so that you don't have this harsh fall off. But if this was like a floor texture, it probably isn't a big deal. Also, if you're doing like a top-down game, it's less of an issue. If you're doing a first-person game and you pick up a sniper rifle, you can zoom in and look at the sides of the texture. Especially if you're using like tessellation or displacement or whatever else. But for our purposes, this is good enough. So then C34 is going to plug into input 3 of the multi-switch, because this is only for door specific. And then everything before C28 is going to go into input 1 and 2. And now that's it for the basewood color mapping, because now every variant should work. So if we go to wall, okay, where are you there? I guess it does. I should be looking at the result. So you can see here that it's looking good. And then if we switch to window, none of these door stuff is going to take effect because of the multi-switch. And then if we go to door, obviously that's what we just worked on. It's looking good. Now we're going to be adding some overall dirt detail. And obviously this is going to depend on our final normal, which changes based on what variant we have. So it's all adaptive and, you know, real time. So here I stopped. I should have probably kept naming these, but the naming was only really important for this stuff. So now you can see here we're adding a bit of dirt on kind of like the crevices and like the edges, and where dust would accumulate. So to achieve that, and it's very subtle because I didn't want it to be like super noticeable unless I was doing like an abandon or rundown, you know, depending on your storytelling. So we're going to take our final normal and plug that into our curvature. And then you're going to get this. And then I'm going to jack up the curvature to 5. Then we're going to use a dirt node here. And we're going to plug in our final AO into the ambient occlusion slot and the curvature into curvature. And then these are the stats that I used. Feel free to play with your own settings, with your own sliders. And then whatever the result of that dirt node is goes into the background of this blend. And then I subtract by 0.5. I use this dirt 4 to subtract from it. If I disable this, then you can see that the dirt is kind of like evenly distributed everywhere. So I wanted to break that up. You can see the difference. Because you're going to have dirt in some areas more than others. And then where that dirt is, there's going to be, it's not going to be evenly, in those areas. So I wanted to add some breakups. I just took a dirt fort here and subtracted it. You can go way more in depth with this, but, at this point, I think it's good enough. Especially for like a side scroller game. Like if you were doing like hallways in a side scroller game, like this would be good. And then after that, I do a bit more. I wanted to get rid of the dirt on this part of the door, because this door is going to be opening and closing unless your storytelling is that this door hasn't been opened in millenniums. Then you would want to have dirt there. But obviously I don't want dirt there. So I got rid of it. And to get rid of it, I took my mask door frame and my wall window door, and I subtracted them to get this, which is the inside of the actual door, not the door frame. And then I took my hide door detail, which is this guy, which was like, I guess, the height map. Oh yeah, that's why it's called height. And then scanned to get just a mask. And then I beveled it to get this fall off. And I did it on the positive side of the distance slider so that I retain my mask and then go outward. So the inside is going to be solid white except for the fall off. And then I subtracted this bevel from this mask, and I got this. Now with this, I'm able to subtract. I'm subtracting the white from this white. So you can see here that I'm eating up that area here. And it gradually falls off so that you can still have some dirt here that's falling off. Otherwise, if you make this harsh, if there was any dirt, let's say like a line of dirt going from here to here, then you would see a harsh cutoff. I wanted it to be a fade. Hence the bevel. And then this is for door stuff only. So the output of that will go into input 3. And then everything before this blend can go into 1 and 2. And then that goes into the opacity here. And then this multi-switch grayscale, whatever the output of this is going to be a new portal called Mask of Dirt. And then we have, what's going on here? I'm seeing some changes here. Okay, so here I just wanted to add some darkening in crevices and dark spots. So what I did here, actually, I'm not going to make the change, but I think this step should happen before this, because the dirt kind of accumulates, right? And it goes on top of everything. So technically this should be in front and this should be back here. But that's all right, because it's this step right here is barely noticeable. But yeah, you want to think of your layering, what would happen first, what would sit on top. But I think this could work as well. So what we're doing here is, if you look at this spot here, you can see I darken some of these areas here. And you can see it here in the live window, just to kind of give it some more depth, Okay, so we're going to start with our final height here, and that's going to plug into an ambient occlusion, RTAO, into a blend, set to min darken, and then we're going to take that final height, plug it into this blend, set to copy, And then for the foreground, we're going to use crown ceiling. And for the opacity, we're going to use crown ceiling accent. Not really sure why I did this. Why did I do this? Oh, okay. Oh, okay. I remember. Here, let me show you. Let's go to window. And then let's look at RTAO. Okay. So the issue I was running into is that if you look at the 2D window here, this part of the wood, which would be this accented part that is higher height than the rest, in the ambient occlusion node, it doesn't show up because it's very high up, right? So let's say I wanted dirt to be accumulating in this crease here. I also want it to be here. But because ambient occlusion is based on height information, then because this part is higher, it's not getting any. Or if it is, it's very, very faint. So I have two of them. That's why I have these two. Where one thinks that it's flat. And then one is... Well, I guess it doesn't think. One is because it's taking the information of the height before this increase or this height increase is added. So that's why I have my crown ceiling, which you can see here. It's all the same height. So it's before the height increase. And then this mask, which is just the middle piece. You can see what I'm doing here. And then I take that and then I do the ambient occlusion for that. And that's why I have these two results. Because if you look at this height and then look at this height. So now that I have that, I take these two and I do a min darken. And then I take this crown ceiling accent mask. Now, it's not perfect, but it's pretty good. And I could probably spend more time on it, but I thought I was getting a little too crazy anyways. But yeah, if I don't have this, then it looks like that. You can see the change on the 3D view here. Which is probably not noticeable for most things, but might as well do it right. Okay. And then this is at the min darken with the opacity from the crown ceiling accent here. And then I invert it because I prefer to work with this kind of mask. And then I histogram scan it to kind of tighten it up a bit. And then I subtract my wall mask. And then here I use a noise purlin scale of 16 of 1. And then I play around with the values here. And then I subtract again to break it up because I don't want it to be even everywhere. So we go from this, where it's like perfectly even, to this. And it's going to get a little complicated here, but just stick with me here. The result from this blend is going to go into this subtract node here. And then we're going to take our mask wall window door into the top, and we're going to subtract. Because I want to, basically what's happening here is I wanted to have a different slider for window stuff. Because it's going to accumulate differently on the window. So subtract the window, basically the window portion out, and then that's going to feed into input 3 for the door. And then the result of this guy is going to go into input 1 and input 2. Then the result from this multi-switch is going to go into a new blend set to subtract. And then we're going to subtract this blend. Oh, wait. Sorry, no, we're not. We're taking the mask glass. And we're getting this. And I think these little things are part of the window frames there. And then we're left with that. And then the result of that, the subtract is going to go into input 2. And then the result of this multi-switch is going to go into 1 and 3 here. And then I take this levels and I played with it. I just lowered the level out high to 0.75. And then that's going to feed into the opacity here. And then for the foreground, I just took, should have just done this. There you go. Oh, I don't know if I showed you guys this color, but you can just color pick it. So then you can see the changes there. Now if we go to our door variant, oh, I remember now what I did. I wanted to have a different mask for the door, which I think is what happens here. Yeah. Yeah, because I wanted to have more control over what happens in here on the actual door. So then I created a door one only. Because if it was the same strength, it would have looked a little different. But yeah, it just gives you a little bit more depth on those low points. Okay, so then, yeah, that's the next one. Set the copy. We're going to take the result of this HSL again and use it on the top. And then the result of this guy here is going to go into the background. And then our wall window door is going to go on top to multiply. And we get this. Then I use a levels node here to just kind of play with the level out high and feed it into this guy. So just a separate controller. That way I have different control on the door versus all the other wood. Honestly, I think it's a little too much there. And then the result of that is only for the door, so that goes only into input 3, and everything before this blend is going to go into 1 and 2. Then we just do a little bit of highlights here, which add a lot of depth. You can see the before and after. We're going to take our final normal into our curvature sobel, set to 1, into a default gradient map, into the foreground, set to overlay at 0.375. And then we take our a sharpen node here to just add a bit of a sharp edges on everything. You can see how it's like a little blurry and then sharpened. And then here we just do some color correction. If we look at this PBR base color / metallic validate node, you typically want your texture to be green, because that means it's within real world values, and you know, red means no. So if I turn off this color correction, you can see that I have way more red than before, and that just means that your texture, those pixels are either too bright or too dark. So they're either 0 or 1, and those values don't exist in the real world unless you're looking at a black hole, I guess. I don't know what the equivalent, like even snow is not 1, it's like, I don't know, 0.9 or something, 0.8 or I don't know, something like that. So in order to just get them as close to green as possible and get rid of like a lot of the red, we do some color correction here. We just take a grayscale conversion and I invert it, and then I histogram scan it, and that kind of gives me those points. And then based on your position, now this isn't the best way to do it, because obviously if you go too high, then you're grabbing on too many pixels, and then you're gonna get something funky looking. So you can see the difference, because all I'm doing is I'm just taking this histogram scan, these pixels, feeding into the opacity, and then I'm taking the sharpen here, and I'm just increasing the lightness on it. So then I'm brightening these pixels only. So then you can see here, if I turn it off, you can see the dark ones are getting a little brighter. and that's helping with this. Then we have another thing. Now this is only applied to the door, and it's only applied to if the door is open. So if we open the door here, don't worry about that. That'll get fixed when we do the normal stuff. So this is the color basically of the shadow. So if we were to increase our value, and sometimes I do this for troubleshooting. If I want to know what is being affected, I just do a bright red uniform and then see what's happening. So let's just make this black again. So that's determining the color. And then we have our door timeline mask that goes in there. And then we have our door switch here, so that you need that Boolean to be turned on for this to take effect. So then that's going to go into true. And then whatever came before this abyss mask goes into false. And then from there, this is only door related. And then this goes into the door slot, which is input 3. And then everything before this blend goes into 1 and 2. And that's it for base color. So we went from this to this. Now let's close our door for now. So I'm just going to hit this. That way I can keep my door amount without having to slide it back to 0. That's the whole point of this door switch. If there's a value that you like, you can just leave it there and then just turn on this switch. That way you don't have to keep resetting or memorizing what door amount you wanted. Alright, so now let's continue on to here, and I'm going to show you how to set up one, and then everything else afterwards is repetitive. So don't worry. I know you're like, oh, we gotta go through all this. We're not. I'm just gonna go over what needs to be gone over. So first, let's go back over here to our normal output now of the base wood, and then plug that into a normal intensity. And here you can basically play with how intense you want the normal to be of the base wood, hence the normal intensity. So actually, let's plug this in. So after we finish our height, like our actual height, we do a normal output here. And then right now it's going from here to here. But this is just the normal. We need final normal. And that is what we're going to be making at the end of this normal stuff. So if you look here, it's only like geometry, I guess, basically, like door stuff and the pattern and this. But if we plug this final normal and after this normal normalized in here, you can see we're going to get all our wood detail added. So before, after. Now there's an issue here with my normal, but I'm gonna worry about that after. I think I missed a switch somewhere, because technically it still thinks it's opening even though it's set to false. So I think I just missed a switch somewhere. Let's see if we can find it. Should be, where's the door opening stuff? Okay, so it's not happening here. It's not happening here. It's happening here. It's happening here. Okay, so I think I just need to switch here. You guys can see how this happens. How we do some troubleshooting. So if it's true, go here. And that goes in there. Switch this to open door. And then if it's false, then you need to go like that. Let's check the final. Yeah, I think that's right. What did I call it? Open door. And then I just always change these to red so that I know what I'm looking at, or easier to find. Okay. Yeah, so now that issue is fixed. Okay. So let's go back to where we left off. So normal intensity 0.025. If you increase this too high, you're gonna get some crazy stuff like that. And obviously I don't want that. But I also wanted it to pop, so I did add a little bit more. That's very, very subtle, and you need to be hitting it with the light at the right angle. There's a bit of a change. Obviously, you can go higher if you'd like, but obviously don't go too high. Otherwise, it's going to look like really, really, really rough wood. See, that's too much. So we went with 0.05. And then I have to increase the tiling. Or our tiling is going to be different. We need to make sure that we offset or we increase the tiling the same amount for roughness, normal, and base color. We want to make sure we're working with the same scale. All right, so yeah, so we're going to change the safe transform, offset mode, manual, tiling 2. Now again, that is going to be the start of our highway up here, and then our main road here. So this is going to be a little bit different. We need to add some extra nodes, but basically it's the same thing. So here we started with a safe transform and a vector warp color. So we're going to start with a safe transform and a vector warp color. The only thing different is that we need a normal combine. Now the reason why we need this is because we're combining this normal, which is again just the stuff that we made in this tutorial or in this part, and then we need to combine it with the normal information of the base wood from the other graph. So we need to combine them together, and if we just combine them together, then they kind of just sit like this, which is what we want, except we have to do the same thing with the base color and use the masks to designate the rotation of the wood and the mask so that we can break up the wood grains. So I think I've lined it up so that they all kind of match. So like safe transform is here, and if you go straight up, safe transform is here, vector warp color. If you go down, vector warp color is here as well. And then I left a gap here, obviously because there's a node here. Okay, so let's get this going. Take the safe transform color here, where we increase the tiling into another safe transform. And again, seed here is going to be 01. And again, this matches straight down with C1. So now we have N1 for normal. And that'll match up with C1 down there. So take the safe transform color. Now change the offset back to random, because now what you can do is you can copy paste this guy. So copy and paste, and then just replug it and you'll get the same thing. If you want to make sure that you're doing everything right, double click this guy and then double click this guy, and it should match up. So if you notice here, you have this wood grain bump. Zoom in, you can see the bump there better. And then when we double click this guy, you can see the normal there as well. So that's a way to tell that things are lining up. If you set this to like tiles or seed 2, you can see that that thing is over here, and that will not line up with this. So that's how you can tell whether they're lined up or not. And obviously if we didn't increase the tiling, that they would not match up either. So then we do a vector warp color with our FF random color. So this guy again, set to 5. Again, if your intensity here does not match this intensity here, then you're going to have a bad time. Make sure your seeds match as well. Because if you change your seed, okay, it doesn't change anything. Intensity changes it. Okay, so then we run into our first normal combine here. And our vector warp color is going to fit into normal 2. And then normal is going to feed into normal 1. And again, we're starting with broad strokes. So this is just going to go over everything. And then the result of the normal combine is going to go into the foreground. And this normal is always going to continue straight. So it's going to plug into background here. And then for the opacity, we're going to take the same opacity that we took here. So again, these guys are also lined up. Or these blend modes are lined up together. You can see because of that. So then this guy is going to go straight up into the same blend. And the blend here is also set to copy. So you can copy paste these guys. Now we're going to be doing the same thing in the next part for roughness. So I lined everything up so that everything can kind of just, you know, it's easier for everybody to follow. Okay. So then that's the first one. That's normal 1. Now let's do normal 2 and normal 3 together, and then I can assume you guys can do the rest. If not, yell at me in the comments and I will make a whole new video just on normal and I'll walk through everything. But basically, we're taking this normal and we're splitting up top to create this highway, because we need a highway for normal and a highway for the base wood normal. So then after this blend, just start another blend here, set the copy. And then from this normal, it's going to split into normal 1. So normal always goes into normal 1. And then we're going to take the base wood normal here and do a safe transform. Now, in order to make sure that everything lines up and this doesn't get too out of hand and start pushing everything to the right, safe transform does not line up with safe transform, because safe transform lines up with normal combine. So what I did here is I think of normal combine being your safe transform in terms of lineup. And then the safe transform color, I just press D to dock it into the normal combine, so it looks a little cleaner. Now what you can do here is copy paste all your safe transforms. So let's say you do this, and then you can paste it, and then paste it directly above, and then just go up, and place it up here. Now plug, so let's say this guy's gone. Now all you have to do is just replace this input connection, and then the output goes on normal 2, and then just dock it. And that should be perfect. So let's check it out. So you saw me copy paste these guys. I'm going to delete these guys because I don't need them, but you saw me do this guy. So this guy, it connects to N03. So then the seed on this guy should be 3, which it is. And if this guy was rotated 90 degrees, so let's do it with this guy. So this guy's rotated 90 degrees. I'm going to copy him. I'm going to paste them up here. I'm going to replace this. I'm going to undocket this guy and get rid of him. And then this guy is going to go in there. And I'm going to docket him. So let's check. So this one's 07. So this one's seat 7. 90 degrees. And again, we're checking the mask. This goes up and down. So yes, that's right. So N7, C7, seat 7, safe transform 7, degrees 90. So I think this is enough for you guys to understand how to just copy paste, copy paste, copy paste. The only difference is that you need this normal combine. Your safe transform goes into the top, and normal goes into normal 1 slot, or the second slot down there, input. So let's just go through it real quick, just because of these guys are in between, and I want to make sure you guys know what's happening here. So pretty much everything here, you guys know what's happening. So I'll just go through this slowly. So then between 3 and 4, actually, I don't think I need to explain this. So between 3 and 4, that's going to go into input 1 and input 3. And then after normal 4, that's going to go into input 2. Now, the reason why I say I don't have to mention this is because it's a repeat of what's happening down here. Now, you don't have to redo all of this because you can just pull from the last output. So you don't have to like do this math, I guess, or like this blending here, because you can just pull from here and then connect it to the top. So whatever you see connected into C5 for opacity, you connect also into N5. And let me see if there's anything weird. We have our switch here, which lines up with this switch. And then there's all this stuff here. You don't have to redo it. Just connect it to N10. C10 matches up. This guy is C10. This guy is C10. And make sure your offset is set to random. So, okay, so everything lines up. Everything should be working for you guys to follow. So let's just check here. This one is N14. So this one should be C14. Yep. We have a switch here. Switch lines up with this switch. Perfect. Boom, boom, boom. 20. C20 lined up. Nothing fancy here. Everything's pretty good. Now here is a little different just because this is for the window coloring. So if I go back to the window, then up here we do a normal color, which is a node. And it gives you basically like a flat top down normal color. So then that goes in here. Because basically what we're doing is we're wiping out any detail that's on here. Because obviously the window's going to be flat. By taking our mask class here. Then that goes into a wall window door mask or multi-switch just like here. Then we continue on with 28, 29, 30, 31, 33, 34, 32. Boom, boom, boom. Should all be the same. Yep, yep, yep. Looking good, looking good. Now let's continue here because this is where things start changing. All right, so once we're past 34, yeah, that's why I stopped at 34 because even with roughness at 34, and then it starts to get different. So at so past this multi-switch after 34, we're going to take our height wallpaper fabric mask, which is this, and then we're going to give it a normal. We're going to turn it into a normal, and it's very faint because this is what's going to be, this is what's seen here. You can see like the hashing. We're going to do a normal combine, but I don't want it to be on the wood or the window or anything that is in wallpaper. So after we combine, that's going to feed into the foreground, and then we're going to take this mask, our mask wall, to determine where that hash stuff is going to go. So now it's only on the wallpaper, and it's not on the wood anymore like it was here. Then after that, this is where we make our raindrops. So after this guy, we're going to go into a blend here, set the copy. And now let's do our rain. Now this rain is not super like, it gets us by, okay? Let's just say that. So we have a dirt 3. I clamped that bad boy. And then I histogram scan that bad boy to make these splashes. We have 2. We have like dripping, and then we have like the ones that are stuck. And then we add a slight bevel. And then we plug that into a slow blur. And then we take our noise purlin 16 times scaled, and we do 2 transforms. That you could do safe transform as well, but it is what it is. So here we tile it 4 times to increase the density without having to make a new noise purlin noise and increasing the scale. Because this is such a small detail, it's not necessary. No one's going to notice. And then this one is scaled twice. So then let's start with this bottom one here. So the one that got tiled 4 times is going to go into a slow blur. We're doing min mode. And then we're going to take this transform 2D and we're going to increase the tiling. So you can see that we go from this to this. Again, just increasing the tiling. And then we do a directional warp. And then our intensity input is a gradient linear 1. So this guy. And the reason for this is that I wanted to pull them down. Because obviously the raindrops are going to be gravity and all that. So I wanted them to kind of be stretched downward. Then after that, that's going to plug into a vector warp grayscale because I want to use this guy because I don't want my rain to kind of, run from one window pane to the other because there's a wooden divide because of the wooden frame. So like if I wouldn't want this dropped if it was sitting at the edge to start here and end here because of this wooden frame, it would probably fall and like slide over and it would be broken up. So that's why I have this guy. If I turn these guys off, then it just kind of runs all the way down. Now, if your detail is tiny enough, no one's going to tell that it's running across because they're super tiny, so you don't see where it starts and where it ends. But for these long guys, you might. So it's just to have a little bit more detail. So we take our mask glass and we flood fill it, and then we just do a flood fill to random color. And then we plug that into vector map for both of these guys. Now we take this guy that we did earlier into a slow blur. And we do a grunge map 005. And then we take 2 transform 2Ds here. You can see the values there. And then we max lighten them together just to kind of add more. And then I save transform. And I offset it. Actually, what did I do this? I think I was trying to do a rain animation where the rain would, fall down. But I ended up not doing it, so let's just get rid of this guy. Alright, so then that goes into its own vector warp grayscale there again. And then I take my still drops and my falling down drops and I max lighten them together. That way, if they ever meet, they get added together, which is what raindrops would do. See, so this guy and this guy, they get max lighten. And then I just lowered it to 0.3. Otherwise, it would look like that, which is probably okay. But I thought they were popping out a little too hard. So I went with 0.3. Then once we have this, I do a histogram scan set to 0.99. If I went all the way up, it would look like that, which I don't want. I want it to look like that. And then what I'm doing here is this is for roughness, but we'll do it now. But this will make more sense in the next part, in the roughness part. So let's take this histogram scan and plug that into the background of this blend mode. And then for the foreground of this guy, we are going to plug this guy in, which if we follow is I should have just done another portal, but our mask glass is going to be plugged into the foreground of this guy. So that we go from this to this, because obviously we don't want this to be all over the wood. If I undid this, actually no, this is roughness specific, so you're not going to see a change there. But once we go from this guy here into this blend mode, if I get rid of this mask, it's going to go all over the wood. It's going to undo all our hard work. So we're going to take that window glass mask into the opacity, and then the result of this guy that we just made with the max lighten at 0.3, we're going to do a normal node again and set it to 0.25, and this will or this will set the intensity of your normal. So if we increase this all the way up, it's gonna get a little crazy. So then that goes into the foreground, and then based on our mask, it's saying I only want the raindrops on the window, which makes sense. And then the result of this blend is going to go into this rain switch, so we can disable rain on and off. So if we just hit this to false, it's going to go away. So let's turn the rain back on. And then from this blend mode, if we want the rain, then from the blend mode, it's going to go on true. And if we don't want rain, then before this blend mode, it's going to go into false. Now let me make this a little nicer. There we go. Okay. Now this is going to be for the door opening. So let's switch to door. Just make it nice, easier to read. Okay. So we have our door switch here. Let's turn on our open door switch. And let's just increase our door opening amount all the way to 100 or 1. Actually, no, let's make it 0.8. Okay. So let's add our multi-switch here. And the result of our rain switch color is going to go into number 2, because number 2 is for window. So this is window related, goes in 2. Before the rain, because this is rain related, the rain's not going to be on the wall or the door, then that is going to feed into wall here. Now, down here, what's happening is we're taking our door timeline mask, aka this guy, and we're turning it into a normal. And then we are taking this result from before the rain stuff, and we are taking this normal and we're copying it on top, and then I'm using this door timeline mask to mask where I want this normal color, because this color, this normal, means flat. So where do I want it to be flat? I want it to be flat here. So then that gradient that you see there is masking the normal of the door. Well, I guess it's showing us the flatness of the door. So then that's going to go into this open door switch. So if it's true, this goes into true. And then before this, before the door and the door fading and stuff, that's going to go into false. And then since this is door related, then this is going to go into slot 3. And then we have our sharpen here, which I'm starting to think this should go before. Let's do this. Oops. There you go. Let's do that. Actually, no, that's fine. And the reason why I have 2 is because this one only leads to input 2 and 3, and then this one only leads to input 2. But yeah, I don't want any sharpening on anything related to this fading stuff, the door opening. Now that probably didn't make a difference, but for myself. Alrighty. So then all of this that we just did here, except for this up here, is going to lead into a final normal portal or output. And then that is what it's going to go. Oh, okay. Well, I just realized something right here. So then this final normal is going to go and connect into this normal normalize. And then from the, we don't need this guy anymore. And then that is going to go into this normal normalize, and then it's going to go into the normal. Because this is before all that stuff we just did. So you can see there's no wood detail on anything. And then this is after the wood detail stuff. And obviously the door fading. And I know this looks weird here, but it'll be fixed when we do the roughness part, which will be next. And the thing I just noticed is that you guys actually did not have this yet. So you guys should be plugging in just the normal. This guy. Because you guys didn't have this. But that's my fault. Hopefully you guys don't get too stuck on that. But I will make a comment in the description if you guys read that before you guys watch the video. But yeah, that's it for color and normal. Hopefully you guys can don't get stuck on this part, but if you do, just let me know and I'll make another video. And I think I will be putting this material in its entirety and this graph and everything on ArtStation and maybe other places for sale. I'm thinking of doing $10 for this one just because how complex and large it is, and because you are getting, you know, a ceiling, a floor, and 3 wall variants out of it. So I think $10 would be pretty good, and it'll probably be on sale too, so you can just wait for that. But yeah, I'll allow you guys to just buy the graph, and then you guys can, you know, export it. And I have a video on how to export properly for Unreal Engine in the channel. But yeah, hopefully this isn't too bad for you guys. Let me know if you guys have any questions, and I will see you guys in the next video where we finish up with roughness and some extra masks, like I'll explain this when we get to it. But yeah, we have like opacity. This is like for rendering in Marmoset. And some of this stuff is also related to, I guess not really, but okay, yeah, I'm yapping. Okay, see you guys in the next one. Take care, everybody.